Canada, apparently they're throwing tariffs on manatee meat and bovine semen, which means The View is very unhappy.
Oh, it's not even that. And The View, you don't need to find Trumpers. You need to fire your race baiters.
Yeah.
You need to fire the two races. You've had people. You had a McCain on there. You've had people on there before, and you ran them off. Mm-hmm. So the racist ones who want to stick to this, Whoopi and Sonny, and the, was it Bette Midler? What's her name? The broke-ass Bette Midler. Fire them and bring people in. Maybe you could get McCain to come back. She was a Republican, but every show and every break, she was nearly in tears because she was being...
What happens when Tyrus smiles from the sidelines like a predator waiting for the joke, and Whoopi Goldberg opens her mouth and walks right into Greg Gutfeld's razor-sharp sarcasm? Chaos. Pure and glorious. The kind of turmoil that spreads for days on the internet. In an instant, she is preaching the country as though it were her personal pulpit. The next, she's psychologically getting ready to step down from the public opinion court. This is the spoiler. Her talking points aren't the only things that falter under duress. It is all of her. On a talk program, this is hardly the typical error. It is truly impossible to overlook this funny catastrophe.
Happy Wednesday, everyone. Well, not if you're Whoopi Goldberg, a.k.a. Karen Johnson. Yeah, who knew Whoopi was a Karen? I thought that was only for white people, like Toyota Priuses and skiing. Roll it, Francis.
Good morning and welcome to The View. You all saw the news. Whoopi will be back here in 2 weeks. Okay?
It's so cute when one of their side gets punished. They sulk like they ran out of raw cookie dough in the green room.
The self-described philosopher queen of daytime television, Whoopi Goldberg, has succeeded once more. She has been effective in turning everyday political discourse into a full-fledged interpretive dance of contradiction, misunderstanding, and self-importance that might give anyone a migraine. It's not a critique. For people who are confused all the time, this is performance art. Ironically, she was verbally and intellectually crushed by two people who weren't even in the same building, not by anyone seated across from her.
Yeah, ABC suspended Whoopi for 2 weeks because she said the Holocaust had nothing to do with race. She said this on a show called The View, which makes everything about race. Except now.
The Holocaust isn't about race. No. It's not about race.
It's about a different race.
But it's not about race. It's not about race.
What is it about?
Because it's about man's inhumanity to man.
Yeah, that's heroically stupid. Even for The View.
Please click like and subscribe to us if you value this takedown. Yes, it is accurate. Greg, Gutfeld, and Tyrus, who never even approached Whoopi's cherished daytime drama table, utterly demolished her. What does a decline signify if that isn't the case? Imagine a normal episode of The View in which they hardly breathe anything but rage, facts are optional, and accountability is non-existent. Whoopi, perched atop her throne, gave off the appearance of a midday oracle drowning in enormous illusion dressed in righteous wrath, as though someone had requested her to have a bake sale for charity out of a sense of basic decency.
So the problem is that you have to go after the racist people. And if the CEO goes, you know what, I'm not going to allow a woman on my show or man that will go after white America and talk about them like dogs. That doesn't represent our ideals or values for anyone. And get rid of those people, and this will clear up real quick. So do you have to actually look in the mirror and clean up your own backyard and get the racist people out? Because that's who you allowed in. You allowed black racist on TV who could just go all day and say anything about white people. And I guess lo and behold, they forgot that there's a lot of people at home, white people at home during the day that are not watching your show anymore. So just clean it up.
Yeah, you know, Emily.
She claimed that anyone who dared to challenge her most recent impassioned speech was holding democracy itself captive in one of her characteristic theatrical outbursts. To put it another way, it's just another Tuesday in Whoopi land. However, the internet retaliated. Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus launched one of their trademark late-night truth bombs away from the cheering crowd. Pure sarcasm, hard facts, and the legendary Gutfeld deadpan delivery that hits harder than Whoopi's morning coffee the moment someone challenges her viewpoint. No glitter, No giggling panel.
Yesterday on The View, otherwise known as Hell's DMV, Whoopi Goldberg asked how much different are the values of the Trump administration from the Taliban.
We have a leader who has repeatedly demeaned women,
Right.
wants to defund organizations that benefit women, calling on the media to shut up, specifically wants to give preferential treatment based on religion. Are these values really much different than the Taliban's?
Wow. Talk about groundbreaking to actually hear a celebrity say something mean about the Taliban. How dare they compare them to Trump? The Taliban should sue. Guess they ran out of Hitler analogies. So as they bash the president, I'm reminded how entertainers rarely express any rage over any strand of misogynist Islamism. If they did, we might take their rage toward Trump seriously.
Greg didn't even bring up her name. He was not required to. He only served to highlight the utter ridiculousness of prominent pundits who routinely made mistakes more often than a malfunctioning weather app. The kind that, after mispronouncing the name of Ukraine, demands that everyone educate themselves. Tyrus stood like a WWE bouncer interrupting a Mensa meeting, dropping a metaphor so lethal that it damaged Whoopi's reputation in the same way as Thanos damaged half of the Earth. The worst part is that Whoopi responded to her email as if reason had personally appeared, even though none of this occurred on The View. She puffed up. She called forth the outrage of Hollywood. She sincerely believed Gutfeld was a hero, and she gazed at the camera with the blazing determination of someone who had just learned about social media. It was more than a stumble. Everyone could tell that this was a full-fledged exhibition of vanity and insecurity.
Check it out on The View, all right? Talking about Latinos. Watch this, Tyrus.
Latinos in Texas, a district that's 97% Latino, went 75 percentage points for Donald Trump. Why?
Misogyny.
It's on the border.
It's
the border
misogyny.
crisis is on their doorstep.
So-
and they were begging people to care about it for years. We
Misogyny
need to
and
take some
sexism.
lessons.
That's what that was.
Misogyny and sexism.
Sure, all that, and the price of butter. Sonny gets the game ball. If it wasn't for her, asking that question, it might have been a closer election.
Then, as if the crushing weight of other people's opinions were too much for her saintly shoulders to bear, she let out a sigh, an old-fashioned theatrical breath. I'll act as though you're beneath me now, but it's the global signal that I've lost this battle. The internet was having a blast. An open mic roast started on Twitter. Many people who were emotionally wounded by daytime television turned to YouTube comment sections as a kind of group therapy. Even Reddit, which usually only gets together to discuss strange pasta recipes or artificial intelligence, came together to mock her most recent attempt at political judgment. Memes emerged as a result of the popularity of videos. That famous picture of Whoopi practically begging to be put on a t-shirt, staring straight into the camera and attempting to explain why opposing viewpoints are the source of all evil. I can guarantee you there are already profitable Etsy stores. Not to mention her greatest hits, such as the way she used language tricks instead of moral clarity to defend a guilty filmmaker, the way she conflated political disagreement with actual violence, and the way she turned the idea of free speech into a game in which she was the only one who could spin the wheel. That is the Whoopi brand, to put it briefly.
But when nothing really comes to mind. I was like, cha-ching. Listen, they're bitter, they're angry, they're entitled. They also should be. This should have been a reset for everyone who pushed lies and misinformation for the last. They call them Hitler. They call these things. America rejected them, and instead of coming back and saying we lied, they instead are now doubling down. So let her keep doing it, because if she keeps that up, we're going to keep getting the Senate and probably the House and the White House, because people see right through your lies. So keep doing what you're doing. Game ball.
Excessive self-congratulation, selective outrage, and inflated certainty are the cornerstones of this brand. What if the offspring of a Facebook tirade and a TED Talk went on to win an Emmy? Greg and Tyrus, meanwhile, didn't try at all. They just were there. They took a breath. They were logical. Beneath all those polished layers of self-righteousness, Whoopi is aware that her fiery ideals have faded like milk exposed to the Arizona heat. However, rather than altering her strategy, she makes it more intense. Because being correct is never as essential on The View as being loud. The delectable irony is this. Perched on a multi-million-dollar platform, Whoopi presents herself as the voice of the typical American woman while drinking decaf fury that is liberally laced with victimization. It's similar to witnessing an intense discussion over the minimum wage at a yacht club. You should reconsider if you believe that this was an unusual meltdown. From misquoting fundamental economic truths to making fun of moderates while flip-flopping harder than a fish on a hot pavement, she has a whole library of collapses.
Sausage maker Johnsonville is recalling more than 42,000 pounds of pork sausage for possible contamination with plastic fibers. Fortunately, authorities were able to track all 42,000 pounds to a single location in New York City.
The Whoopi breakdown has become somewhat of an American custom by this point. It begins with a smug grin and concludes with a passionate, buzzword-filled, and somewhat political outburst. The audience, genuinely delighted to be in an air-conditioned space, then begins to clap in the studio. Lastly, the disintegration that occurs when reality or Greg and Tyrus subtly challenge the narrative. But rather than Whoopi specifically, the true blow came from Greg and Tyrus's criticism of the larger culture of celebrity-driven disinformation. Whoopi took it in as if it were an assault on her whole existence. She cried out, "How dare they? Are they unaware that I participated in Sister Act?" It was almost theatrical to pretend to be a victim. Not only was she incorrect, but she was hurt as if criticism and humor were emotional assaults. The trick is that you are no longer incorrect, but courageous if every argument turns into a personal assault. However, celebrating oneself while deceiving millions of people is not true bravery. Recognizing when you're in over your head is a sign of true bravery. Whoopi is constructing a submarine in a children's pool in the interim.
It's not even that. In The View, you don't need to find Trumpers. You need to fire your race baiters.
Yeah.
You need to fire the two races. You've had people. You had a McCain on there. You've had people on there before, and you ran them off. Mm-hmm. So the racist ones who want to stick to this, Whoopi and Sonny, and the, was it Bette Midler? What's her name? Yeah, broke-ass Bette Midler. Fire them and bring people in. Maybe you could get McCain to come back. She was a Republican, but every show and every break, she was nearly in tears because she was being...
Greg Gutfeld is an expert at this game. His voice is quiet. Like anvils, he delivers punchlines. Each of them landed precisely and skillfully. Tyrus cuts through Hollywood hype like a chainsaw through tofu, with similarities so stark they need a warning label. Restraint is their hidden weapon. The View was not taken over by them. They did not provoke a fight between studios. They saw nothing but the Emperor's lack of clothing. Ironically, the Emperor recorded a scene in which she lamented being seen without her imperial attire as payback. There was no disagreement here. The dismantling was a drive-by. Whoopi's self-importance caused her to collapse beneath the lyrical twist. Tyrus and Greg weren't even trying to hit her. They were mocking her ridiculousness. However, she swooped right in and melted down on live television like a candle made entirely of hypocrisy, like a moth to a flame. Naturally, when they circled the wagons, her other hosts recited their well-known affirmations. "You're so brave. I appreciate you speaking up. Whoopi, you are loved."
Their brains are small. But who's the dumbest one of all? True, none of them are in Mensa, but who's the most densa? Perhaps it's Sonny who mastered the art of making idiots look smart. Now The View could ask a mirror who's the dumbest one of all, but there's no way that glass doesn't shatter.
The public didn't buy it, and it felt more like group therapy for injured egos than a midday discussion program. Not social media, not regular watchers, not even certain devoted admirers, as the drama eventually loses its realism and becomes repetitive. People begin to question whether the show itself is the true issue when every disagreement is portrayed as a personal attack and every critic is portrayed as the enemy. And welcome to the Hall of Fame for hypocrisy, just when you thought the program couldn't be any more ridiculous. Because Whoopi's greatest contradictions are so remarkable, they ought to have their own department in the Museum of Cognitive Dissonance. In a Greatest Hits reel, she says the exact opposite of what she said 5 minutes ago, each time with complete confidence and no recollection of what she had said before. Let's start by defending Mel Gibson. Yes, the Mel Gibson, who is renowned for his extremely rude public rants directed at almost everyone.
So that makes Sonny Hostin, who thinks climate change caused the solar eclipse, the dumbest of them all. because everyone knows the moon caused the eclipse, which is controlled by the view's gravitational pull. All right, Kat, did you ever see such a group? It's amazing how Joy and Whoopi became the smart ones.
For me, the most shocking thing about the conversation was how truly boring it was. They're like, well, the cicadas, they're cicadas. Okay, but it was like every 100 years. No, it's every 17 years. Do you know how many Emmys this show had?
Whoopi assured everyone at the time that Mel couldn't be what people were accusing him of because, in her words, he was always very attractive to her. How charming. A few years later, she becomes the enlightened voice of daytime television, making passionate statements about ingrained privilege. Social disparity seems to be a serious problem until it involves members of her Hollywood circle having their reputations ruined. Imagine being so immoral that you might not be able to comply with an International Ethics Committee standards. But don't worry, a college student will be the first to suggest that someone be canceled if she writes something awkward from 2010. Additionally, the freedom to express oneself is sacred, unless she's being reprimanded for a tone-deaf speech, in which case she turns into a glamorous martyr overnight. She views cancel culture as a nightmare of fascism, unless it's directed at someone she doesn't like. If so, just brunch on Tuesdays is covered. Greg Gutfeld delivered the final blow when he nonchalantly described The View as a cult of complaint dressed in a delusional bathrobe after analyzing her reasoning like a sardonic specimen in a scientific lab. Outside of Manhattan, the internet went crazy. Whoopi's reply was the same corny comment about right-wing animosity, like a jukebox stuck on a single depressing song. The last blow was then delivered by Tyrus. There was no disagreement here. A compassionate death to faulty ideals. Whoopi, on the other hand, leaned back and blinked slowly, as if she had just lost a fight that she had no idea had begun. Will she get better? Will she begin to promote candid communication? Not very likely. When she returns, her perspective will be so detached from reality that it may require its own passport. Greg and Tyrus won't even have to try to be relevant when that occurs. Maybe it's not all that shocking that Whoopi Goldberg broke down under duress. It airs once a week. And that's true power to people with mics and good sense can activate it from hundreds of miles away.